Dave Talks Comics, Episode 100, Dollar Comics. Welcome to Dave Talks Comics, a program about comic books and cartoons. I talk about comic books I have read and cartoons I have watched. I will usually summarize the stories, and I do summarize a few stories on this episode, but this one's going to be a little different. There may be some, in fact, I know there's at least one or two spoilers in here, although nothing recent. These are all old stories I'm talking about. After all, I'm going to be talking about Dollar Comics on this episode. So I talk a little bit about the stories. I talk about comic books I have read. The earliest Dollar Comics, the first comics from DC and Marvel only that were priced at $1 and what they were, and if I have any memories of them, what those are. As I look at the notes I made on DC Comics, Dollar DC Comics, I see now that there is really more than one era or phase of Dollar Comics at DC. The first phase or era lasted from 1972 to 1976. In this phase, the Dollar Comics were all tabloid-sized comics. They were either called Limited Collector's Edition or Famous First Edition. They, for the most part, contained reprint material. The first one was dated Christmas of 1972, and it featured Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. And the last one was dated November of 76, and featured the Legion of Superheroes. After that, the series of tabloid-sized comics continued, but the price went up to $2, and coincidentally, or maybe not coincidentally, the first book at the new price was Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Another printing of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. I currently have one comic book from this era, the Shazam comic. And actually, one of the comics from this era was one of my first comics, and that was it wasn't just mine, it was mine and my brother's. It was the Flash versus Superman race comic book, which I have looked for online. I've looked to try and buy another copy of it. It usually goes for about $20, $25, and those aren't usually in great shape. But maybe one of these days I'll get my hands on a copy of it. The second era lasts from 1977 to 1983, and there's really a little bit of overlap between the second phase or era and the next one. But the second phase is what most people think about, or at least people who know about DC Comics when they think about Dollar Comics at DC. And that's because these comics were branded with Dollar Comics on the top. It began in March with March-April issues of a few comics in 1977. The first comics were House of Mystery, where it didn't last very long. It was more of an experiment. It only lasted about 9 issues, after which the price dropped to 50 cents. Superman Family, where it lasted much longer. It lasted for about 40 issues, from issue 182 to 222, which was the last issue of Superman Family. And that ended in September of 82. G.I. Combat, which lasted the longest at the dollar price, which lasted for almost 60 issues, almost 5 years. Well, actually, it was probably more than 5 years. Yeah, it was more than 5 years because it was bi-monthly initially. And the last issue there was, so from issue 201 to 259, the last issue there was the November of 83 issue, at which point it went to $1.25. There was one exception in that period, and that was issue 246, which cost $1.50 and was the 30th anniversary issue of G.I. Combat. The other comic that helped to start this era was World's Finest Comics, and it lasted almost 40 issues there, from issue 244 to issue 282. Last issue came out in August of 82, after which it went to 60 cents. There was a number of other comics that followed the lead of those four series. DC Special Series had a number of issues that cost $1. Batman Family, although it only lasted for 4 issues, and the last issue of the dollar comics experiment at Batman Family was also the last issue of the series. Adventure Comics from 459 to 466, which I believe were the issues where the Justice Society appeared after after All-Star Comics was canceled. The Unexpected from issues 189 to 195, which was a horror title, which continued on after, just like Adventure Comics, continued on after the price went down from $1. And Detective Comics from issues 481 to 495. Now, these were bigger comic books. They charged more for them, and they were bigger. They would have multiple stories in them, but there was nothing super. Not sure where I was going with this thought. So some of these comics continued, some of them did not, like Batman Family and Superman Family. So that era kind of ended in 1983. So the third era, which kind of overlaps with that previous era, started in fall of 79, summer of 80. And this was when you saw specials and annuals and a few anniversary issues that were priced at $1. In 1980, you had Superboy Spectacular, which was just a collection of reprints that was, according to the Grand Comics database, especially commissioned by a school system and distributed exclusively through comic shops as DC's first direct sales-only experiment. Interesting. In 1981, you had, you know what? I skipped something. From the fall of 79 till the summer of 80, there was 2 series that were tried at $1. And they were bigger than regular size comic books. I think they were about 68 pages each. I'm not sure if that's 68 pages of content, or I'm not sure how much there was in the way of ads. But those were Time Warp, which ran for 5 issues, and All Out War, which ran for 6 issues. All Out War, of course, was a war comic. Time Warp was a science fiction comic. Time Warp would later get some of the stories that had originally been planned for Time Warp later appeared in The Unexpected. So that was fall of 79 through the summer of 80. And like I said, in 1980, you also had that Superboy Spectacular. In 81, The Flash number 300 appeared. That was let me see, I have this open. Yes. That was the August of 1980 issue. And it's got this great wraparound cover, which shows the Flash zipping around and punching all the villains in his rogues gallery, from Abracadabra to Gorilla Grodd, Mirror Master, Captain Cold. Captain Cold? Yeah, it is Captain Cold, isn't it? And Captain Boomerang, the Trickster, and a few others who's are a little too small in this image for me to figure out exactly who they are. It was drawn by Carmine Infantino. And the other comic that came out in 1981 that was priced at $1, the other special, was Madame Xanadu number 1. Now, this was it was not called Madame Xanadu Special, but this was a special. It wasn't the beginning of a new series. It featured some stories of Madame Xanadu, who had been a character who had been running in Doorway to Nightmare. And these stories, from what I was able to find, were originally scheduled to appear into Doorway to Nightmare, but it was canceled after 5 issues. It was not a $1 comic like Time Warp was, but similar to Time Warp, some of the stories that had originally been slated to appear in Doorway to Nightmare later appeared in The Unexpected. In 1982, there were 8 annuals that came out that were all priced at $1 from DC Comics, as well as a few other specials. As far as the annuals go, I have read a few of them. All-Star Squadron Annual number 1, which I talked about on the very first episode of Dave Talks Comics. Not in great depth, but I did talk about it. It has to do with the origins of Wildcat, the Golden Age Atom, and the Golden Age Guardian, Jim Harper. DC Comics Presents number 1, which I thought I had read, but when I looked at it just now, I don't think I have it, and I don't think I've read it. It's a team-up of Superman of Earth 1 and Superman of Earth 2, where they battle Lex Luthor of Earth 1 and Lex Luthor of Earth 2, and I believe it's also the first appearance of Ultraman of the Crime Syndicate. And I believe that's before the... Is that before the Crime Syndicate appeared? I'm not sure. Anyhow. There's a few other titles. New Teen Titans number 1, which was the final chapter of the New Teen Titans Omega Men storyline from New Teen Titans, because the Omega Men didn't have their own comic book at that point. They, I think, had only appeared in Green Lantern and I think also in Action Comics at that point. Sergeant Rock, there's a Sergeant Rock annual, there was a Warlord annual, there was a Batman annual, a Saga of the Swamp Thing annual, none of which I've read, but all from 1982, all priced at $1. And then finally there's the Legion of Superheroes annual number 1, which is part of the Great Darkness saga, and I will be talking about that on the episode in which I talk about the third part of, or which will be titled The Great Legion of Superheroes, The Great Darkness Saga Part 3. Should be coming up soon, possibly the next episode of Dave Talks Comics. Also in 1982, there was a few other special comics that came out. Green Lantern number 150. This was, let me find this. Aha, yes, this has a very interesting cover. It says, Meet Hal Jordan, renegade Green Lantern of Earth, leader of the anti-GL Corps. His only thought is to destroy, destroy, destroy. And shows him leading a legion of, I guess, anti-Green Lanterns. I don't have this issue. I haven't read it, but it did cost $1. It did come out from DC Comics. The other comic book that came out in 1982, the other special that came out in 82, was the Legion of Superheroes number 294, which was also part of the Great Darkness saga, and I will be talking about that on a future episode of Dave Talks Comics. And that came out in December of 82. It is billed as the last part of the Great Darkness saga, but the collection I'm reading has 2 more issues of Legion of Superheroes. So it's the last part, but it's not the last part. Camelot 3000, the first 6 issues of that started in 1982. December of 82, the first issue came out. This was a 12-part maxi series. I really liked this story. I believe it was written by Mike W. Barr and drawn by Brian Boland. If you like the Arthurian legends and you like science fiction, definitely worth checking out. There's plenty of collections of it out there. I'm not sure how much the individual issues go for, but very cool story, at least I thought so. And it has some very kind of adult themes in it, which was part of, I was about 12 years old when this came out. So I believe there's even a little bit of nudity in it. And it was not labeled mature readers only because that was not something you saw in comic books back then. So the first 6 issues came out between December of 82 and July of 83, after which it went up to $1.25. So that was it for 1982. Now, in 1983, there was another 8 annuals. Once again, a few of them I've read, but not most of them. There's the All-Star Squadron Annual number 2, which was the last chapter of the Ultra Saga, and I talked about that on Dave Talks Comics episode 18. Let's see, there was New Teen Titans Annual number 2, which I believe introduced the vigilante, was that Adrian Chase or something like that? Let me see if I can find this. 1982. No, this is 1983. New Teen Titans Annual number 2. Yes, Adrian Chase. And he went on, he had his own comic book, which lasted for a while. I've read this issue, but I don't have this issue, and I haven't read it since the 80s, since probably soon after it first came out. Let's see. And then there was a bunch of other annuals that came out. I don't think I've read any of these. Justice League of America annual. There was a DC Comics. Oh, wait. I do think I do have the DC Comics Presents annual number 2. I think that's him with that Superwoman, but it's not Superwoman of the Crime Syndicate. It's a different Superwoman. Let's see. Next issue. Yes. Introducing Superwoman. Yes, I do have this, and I have read it, but not... It's been a few years. Nothing really comes to mind about it. Let's see, were there any others? There's a Sergeant Rock annual, there was a Warlord annual, there was a Legion of Superheroes annual, and there was a Superman annual. Also in 1983, there was a Superman special, and then there was also a Superman movie special, which was the comic book version of Superman number 3. In 1983, the Omega Men, the original Omega Men comic book started. The first 4 issues cost $1, and that was from April to July of '83. After that, the price went up to $1.25. Then there's some curiosities here, as I like to put it. There was Arak, Son of Thunder, number 24, which came out in August of '83, which was the second anniversary spectacular. It was a 38-page story. Kind of odd. I don't think I've ever heard before or since of a second anniversary spectacular. I guess Roy Thomas, who wrote the book, probably had a story that he probably wanted to do an annual for it. And I don't know, maybe the powers that be at DC Comics nixed that idea, and instead he put it out in an issue, and then of course they had to charge $1 for it because it was a longer story. I don't know. But the other curiosity are the New Teen Titans drug issues 1 and 2, both of which I have, both of which I remember getting back in 1983. And it's kind of odd because, as I recall, these were handouts. I didn't ever remember there being a price tag on these, but according to the Grand Comics database, these comic books were priced at $1 each. And when I say drug issues, these are the comic books that were... This was part of Nancy Reagan's policy, her Just Say No campaign, Just Say No to Drugs. And I'm pretty sure I got these at school. I'm almost certain I did not buy these in a comic shop. Then in 1984, well, the annuals went up in price, so there were no annuals that were priced at $1. There were no specials that were priced at $1. There was no anniversary issues that were priced at $1. And it wasn't until 1985 that we got any more dollar comics from DC Comics. And there weren't that many. There was America versus the Justice Society, although the first issue was priced at $1.50, and then the next 3, it was a 4-issue miniseries, were priced at $1 each. And also in 1985, Who's Who began, the definitive directory of the DC Universe. And that ran from March of '85 through April of '87, and it was $1 for its entire run. Now, you could consider this to be the first regular ongoing series that was priced at $1. I suppose you could also look back at something like Time Warp or All Out War and say that those were, although those were larger than regular. But Who's Who is a special series. I don't think you can consider that to be the first regular comic series to be priced at $1. You really have to jump forward to 1987 to find that. And the Spectre was the first new series to be priced at $1. This was the Spectre series that was written by Doug Munch. The first issue came out in April of '87. And then the first ongoing series to change from 75 cents to $1 was Saga of the Swamp Thing with issue 61. And that was in June of 1987, so a couple months after the Spectre. And then there was this gradual process of moving from the price of 75 cents to $1, and And if you want to hear more about that, I would say go back and listen to episode 75 of Dave Talks Comics, and I talk about that a little bit there. Unlike DC, Marvel Comics didn't have quite as many phases of dollar comics. The initial phase would have been from 1974 to 1979, and these were not comic books, but comic book magazines. Probably the best known of which is Savage Sword of Conan. For the first 44 issues, from August of 74 until September of 79, it was $1. After that, it went to $1.25. There was a number of other comic book magazines that Marvel put out in this era. There was Planet of the Apes, which ran for the first 13 issues was $1. Marvel Preview for the first 17 issues, that was $1. Let's see what else. Deadly Hands of Kung Fu from issues 16 through 33. That was $1. Previously, it had been 75 cents. Actually, it was weird because it was 75 cents for the first 14 issues, and issue 15 was $1.25, and then it dropped back down to $1 with issue 16. And then from 16 to 33, it was $1, and 33 was the last issue of that series. There was 11 other magazines that were $1 each. Most of these are not superhero magazines. They're not connected. Doc Savage was one of them, but I'm not going to bother to list them all. Rampaging Hulk, issues 1 through 9, and that was the complete run of this Hulk comic book magazine. Was $1 comic. That was from January of 77 through June of 78. I've never seen or read any of those. In fact, I haven't seen or read most of these. I've read some Savage Sword of Conan, but I don't know if I think I have one issue of Deadly Hands of Kung Fu. And the other comic book was Howard the Duck, which only the first issue was of the Howard the Duck comic book magazine was $1. After that, it went to $1.25. Now, the thing about the comic book magazines is part of the reason why Marvel did them was because that they did not fall under the auspices of the Comic Code Authority. So the first comic book that had the seal of the Comic Code Authority on it that Marvel produced that cost $1 was The Man from Atlantis #1, which came out in February of 78. Now this comic only ran for 7 issues, and the first issue was a double size or oversized issue, and after that it dropped down to 35 cents for the last 6 issues of that series. After that, it would be 3 years before the next comic book that would be priced at $1, and that would be Fantastic Four number 236, which came out in November of 81. This is right near the beginning of John Byrne's run as writer and artist of the Fantastic Four. And that was the 20th anniversary special, or the 20th anniversary issue. In 1982, you had, and going forward, you had a situation that was kind of similar to what DC had, in that there were both annuals that cost $1, and then there were also special issues that cost $1. But Marvel did a lot more of the special issues, and for that matter, they did more of the annuals as well, but not by a huge margin. I think DC had about 8 annuals a year for 1982 and 1983. Marvel had 12 a year for each of those years. I've read a few of them, even fewer than I have of the DC. Captain America #6. I talked about this on, let me see, back. No, not that one. I already talked about that. Captain America #6, annual #6. I talked about that on the very first episode of Dave Talks Comics. That's a good one. I enjoyed that because it was written by J.M. DeMatteis, and that's one where they go back and they kind of talk about the history of Captain America and how there's been more than one person who's worn the costume of Captain America. But there's also a story behind it all, which isn't the best, but it kind of introduced me to those ideas that there wasn't just one Captain America. Marvel 2-in-1 annual number 7 came out in 1982. That was, I bought a copy of that. I'd read that back in the day. I don't think I owned it. I think I read somebody else's copy. But this is the one that features Ben Grimm, the Thing, on the cover, wearing boxing gloves and boxing shorts. And he's got Colossus and Sasquatch and Wonder Man and Thor and the Submariner and Hulk standing behind him. And this is the one where I believe it's the Champion of the Universe comes. Is that who it is? The Champion of the Universe? Let me see. Going down, looking. What was it? Yes, the Champion of the Universe, who was, I think, one of the Eternals, or no, I'm not sure it's Eternals, but anyway, he comes to Earth and he wants to fight the best of the best, and in a boxing ring, of course. And so his representative kidnaps all of these powerful superheroes. I don't think there was any supervillains. I could be wrong on that. But he captures all these superheroes. And basically, one by one, they get whittled down until Ben Grimm's the only one left. I mean, some of them don't even make it to the ring because they're set up to train for this match against the champion. And Ben Grimm doesn't beat the champion, but he stands up to the champion, and he goes the distance with the champion, and he's practically dead at the end. But, the champion is very impressed by the Thing's tenacity and his endurance, and the Thing doesn't want to stop, and it's such a good issue. It's such a great issue. Other annuals from 1982: Avengers, Conan, Star Wars, Thor, Iron Man. Okay, this is one that I haven't read, but I really like the cover to it. It's a team up between Iron Man and the Black Panther, and this is one I want to get my hands on and read. I've never heard anybody talk about it, but it just looks like a really cool cover. And let's see. Oh, X-Men Annual number 6. Yes, this is. I don't remember. This is one that Dracula shows up in. There was also an issue of the regular comic that Dracula showed up in, of the X-Men, Uncanny X-Men. But I can't remember which one came first. If this was the first appearance of Dracula in an X-Men comic book, or if it was the other issue. But I'm pretty sure that I used to have this and that I've read this. See, there's a Marvel Team-Up Annual, there's an Amazing Spider-Man Annual, there's an Incredible Hulk Annual, there's a ROM Annual. I haven't read any of those. As far as ongoing series go, What If? What If was originally, I think, 75 cents, but starting with issue 31, it went to $1. And that first issue was the What If Wolverine Had Killed the Hulk, which I'm pretty sure I had once upon a time. And so from issues 31 through 47, which was the end of the run, it was a $1 book. It included some other issues that I used to have, like there was the one where what if the Dazzler had become what if Dazzler had become the Herald of Galactus? What if Iron Man was trapped in King Arthur's time? Was trapped in the time of King Arthur? I don't remember. I remember reading the part about what if Dazzler had become the Herald of Galactus, but I don't remember reading the other one. And of course, that's tied into the Doom Quest story from Iron Man 149 and 150. So it's kind of funny that I don't remember that, but I certainly have a memory of reading the Doom Quest story from back then. Oh well. What if Elektra had lived? There's a few other stories from here that are worth mentioning, I think. There is, let's see, or is there? No, I guess that's about it from the What If, from the dollar era of What If. Now, also in 1982, there was a number of, what I call specials. They weren't specials. They weren't branded as specials, but they were large, they were oversized issues, and they cost $1. In February of 82, Savage She-Hulk number 25. Now, this was the last issue Savage... This was the last issue of Savage She-Hulk, and this isn't there's a number of comics over the next few years that were double-sized last issues, like this one, And I don't have this. I don't think I've ever read any of Savage She-Hulk, including this issue. There was a Time Bandits movie special. I love the movie. I don't think I've ever read this movie special, though. Daredevil number 181. This is the classic Bullseye versus Elektra. This is right smack in the middle of Frank Miller's run as writer and artist on Daredevil. Excellent issue, excellent run of comics, which I've read at least twice. I have the trade paperback collections. There's 3 of them that collect all those issues. I think there's also an omnibus these days, but I'm not really an omnibus kind of guy. There was a Silver Surfer one-shot, which I did not know of until I was doing the research for this episode, which was penciled by John Byrne and written by John Byrne. I had no knowledge of this whatsoever. Inks by Tom Palmer. One day I'm going to have to seek this out, find it either in a reprint or because I'm just kind of surprised that I'd never even heard of it. But there's more that I haven't heard of, and I'll get to that eventually. Let's see, what else? There's Moon Knight number 25, Dazzler number 21, which had a photo cover. Once again, I haven't read these issues. I haven't owned these issues. Master of Kung Fu number 118. For the most part, these are issues that are oversized and have some sort of a special story, or maybe they're an anniversary. I guess maybe these were going to be annuals, but they decided not to do them as annuals, to do them as regular issues. I'm really not sure. I mean, that would really be a question for somebody who'd worked in editorial maybe back then in the early 80s. Maybe somebody like Louise Simonson would have some insight into this kind of stuff. Or, let's see, no, I think Bob Greenberger was at DC, not at Marvel. I could be wrong on that, though. But certainly Louise Simonson was working in editorial at DC at that time. Let's see. So 1983, another 12 annuals. Now, I got to say, the 1983 annuals are kind of weird. At least the covers are. I don't think I've read any of these. Yeah, looking through the list, I don't think I've read any of these. Let's see. Captain America, Marvel Team Up, Thor, Fantastic Four, Incredible Hulk, Iron Man, Rom, Amazing Spider-Man, Star Wars, Avengers, Conan, X-Men. I don't think I've read any of these. And they all had these weird covers where it was like a black cover. You know, black, it was like the artwork was put in a box on the cover. And outside of that box, which had the artwork, it was all black. And then you had the logo, so like X-Men or Captain America or whatever it was. But it looked, honestly, looking back at it now, it looks kind of ugly to me. I'm just saying. And that's another question for somebody from editorial. Whose idea was it to do all these annual covers like this? As far as ongoing series go, well, it's not really an ongoing. It's more of a limited series, but a long one. The official handbook of the Marvel Universe began in 1983. It ran from January of 83 to May of 84, 15 issues. I have the entire run. I've read large chunks of it. I don't think I've read every single page in its entirety. But also from 1983, Red Sonja, numbers 1 through 4. These were all double-sized issues. The series continued after that, but it dropped to 60 cents. And, of course, it was a smaller comic book after that. It was no longer double-sized. Kull the Conqueror. Issues 3 and 4 were $1. Before that, they'd been $1.25, I guess, for the first 2 issues, and after that, it dropped down to 60 cents, which is, I don't know, in my notes I wrote the word weird here, so I guess that seemed weird to me. So that was it for the ongoings in 83. So ongoing, by that I mean all the issues of the run, or at least that part of the run, were $1. Now specials, so these, once again, like the 82 specials, these are like single issues that were usually double-sized. You had Daredevil number 190. This is right near the end, which is called Resurrection, where Elektra comes back from the dead. And spoilers, I know. Where Elektra comes back from the dead. This is right near the end of of Frank Miller's run on Daredevil. And once again, great run. Definitely, well, I think it's worth a read. If you've liked any of Frank Miller's other stuff, like his Batman stuff, this is really, I enjoy it. Fantastic Four number 250. This is right smack in the middle of John Byrne's run as writer and artist. Okay, now here's a book which I had not heard of before I did this research, but now I want to get my hands on it, and that's the Marvel No Prize book. You know, I'm really curious to see what that looks like. Let's see, then we've got Spectacular Spider-Man number 75. Uncanny X-Men number 166. This was towards the end, might have been the last issue, I'm not certain, of the Brood saga. But it's got a beautiful cover by Paul Smith, who I believe was also doing the interior art at this point. He didn't last very long as the artist of X-Men. But it's got a beautiful cover, which includes the X-Men fighting the Brood, and you also see Lilandra on the cover in her battle armor, wielding what looks very much like a lightsaber. Very cool cover, in my opinion. Marvel Tales number 150, which at this point Marvel Tales was a reprint book of Spider-Man stories for the most part, or stories from The Amazing Spider-Man for the most part. And this one featured a reprint of Amazing Spider-Man Annual number 1, in which he fought the Sinister Six. I don't have this comic, but thought that was worth noting. Team America number 12. This was the last issue of Team America. I have not read any of Team America. Well, that's not true. Now, hold on. I do think I have an issue of Team America. And I do have the first appearance of Team America, I think it is, which was in an issue of Captain America, very appropriately. Marvel 2-in-1 number 100. I'm going to talk about this a little more in detail after I finish talking about the Dollar Comics era. Spider-Woman number 50. This was the last issue of Spider-Woman. See, another case. Team America number 12, Marvel 2-in-1 number 100, Spider-Woman number 50, all the last issue of these comics. Alpha Flight number 1. I talked about this on episode 40 of Dave Talks Comics, along with the next 3 issues, so issues 1 through 4 of Alpha Flight on that episode. Defenders number 125. I don't have this. I've never read it, but it looks like it's a new start for Defenders. They kind of scrapped the old team and kind of reshuffled, I guess. It's not a reboot, really. I mean, they're not, but it's just I think it's a new team. I mean, from what I can read online, what I've read online. Uncanny X-Men number 175. This has another very cool cover by Paul Smith, and the interior art, the interior pencils, at least the breakdowns, some of them are by Paul Smith. Most of the pages are by Paul Smith. This was kind of the beginning of the end for me with the X-Men. I had started reading X-Men around issue 150, although I went back. I started buying it, I think it was like 152 or something like that, but then I went back and I bought all the issues since John Byrne's run it in, because those issues that John Byrne drew were kind of expensive back then, at least on my budget. And but I did buy all the issues following his run. I think starting with issue 144 or 145, one of those. And but issue 175 was kind of the beginning of the end for me. It was not the last issue I bought, but this whole, Phoenix was supposed to be dead, and then she was back, and I was like, wait a minute, what's going on? It's kind of like, I don't know. It felt to me like they wanted to have their cake and eat it too, and it was just too much. I don't know. Maybe I was just looking for an excuse. I love the Brood saga. I loved some of that outer space adventures of the X-Men, but when they indicated that Phoenix was coming back and Phoenix wasn't dead after this huge, and I don't think I'd even read the Phoenix saga, or the Dark Phoenix saga at that point. I may have. Or I might have read a couple issues from it. I don't think I'd read it in its entirety. And honestly, going back, I went back a couple years ago and reread it, and I don't love it. I don't love it. The artwork's beautiful, but I don't love the story. It's not awful, I just don't love it the way some people do. Okay, moving along. There's still a few more special issues. I'm still talking 1983 here. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 comics from 1983 that are like special issues. Not annuals. But anyway, the next one is Kazar the Savage, number 29. Now, this one I did buy, and I still have in my collection. And I have definitely read this. And this is the wedding of Kazar and Shanna the She-Devil. Also features an appearance by Belasco. And this may have been why I picked this up. That and the way Shanna the She-Devil looks on the cover. Let's see. Yeah, it might have been Belasco that convinced me to pick this up, because he appeared in that issue of Uncanny X-Men, which basically is the origin of magic. The character Ilyana Rasputin's origin, at least as far as her magic powers go, or her superpowers go. So that might have been why I picked this up. I'm not sure. And then the last special issue from 1983 was Power Man and Iron Fist number 100. I have not read that. I don't own it. So that's it for 1983. 1984, once again, a whole slew of annuals, 12 annuals once again. And once again, I don't think I've read any of these, and I don't own any of these. Let's see, Avengers, Conan, Iron Man, Marvel Team-Up, New Mutants, Thor, Uncanny X-Men, Fantastic Four, ROM, Spectacular Spider-Man number 4. Now that one, when I look at it, it's written by Bill Mantlo. That's one I think I would like to pick up. That looks kind of cool. It looks like it goes into the past of, let me see, yes, it looks like it goes into the past of Aunt May, of her and Uncle Ben. So I think that's one I want to try and get my hands on. I don't know if that's been reprinted at all. Probably, no, it doesn't look like it's been reprinted. Yeah, that's one I got to put on my list. That's one I got to hunt down. I want to read that. And let's see, that was Incredible Hulk, Amazing Spider-Man. Interestingly enough, there was no Captain America annual and no Star Wars annual. So that's it for 1984. That's it for the 84 annuals. Now, 1984 saw the beginning of the Marvel Superhero Secret Wars, which cost $1 an issue. I bought and read the first 4 issues, still have them. I never went further than that. Honestly, I can't remember exactly why I stopped picking it up. There was all kinds of reasons. I didn't live that close to a comic book store. It was a good half-hour drive to get to a comic book store. And, you couldn't always find these things on the newsstand in that point, at that age, in that era. I mean, we were starting to go to the direct comics market, and I don't remember if the pharmacy where I would sometimes buy comic books still had them in 1984 or not. I know I was certainly buying some comics there in 81, 82, 83, but I'm not sure. 82 certainly. But for whatever reason, I haven't read beyond issue 4 of Marvel Superhero Secret Wars. As far as specials go, well, let's see. There was Marvel Super Special number 32, The Muppets Take Manhattan. I don't own it. I've never read it. ROM number 50. Moon Knight number 35. I used to have this. I know I used to have this. And when I made my notes, I wrote in there, I have it. And then I went back to my collection, and I don't have it. I don't know when I lost it or what happened to it, if I sold it to somebody or what, but it's been a long time. But I definitely used to have that. Micronauts number 57. This is another weird one. This was the next to last issue of Micronauts. The last issue was not a double-sized issue, but the next to last issue was. So I don't know what happened there. I mean, that'd be another case of maybe you should ask the editor, because obviously you're not going to be able to ask Bill Mantlo at this point, unfortunately. I don't. Yeah, if you don't know, Bill Mantlo was a victim of a hit-and-run accident, and while he's still alive, he suffered, I'm not sure if brain damage is the exact correct term, but he's in an assisted living facility, and I assume that's where he's going to be for the rest of his life. He's been there for the past 20 years, or 25 years. I believe this happened in the early 90s. But Great writer, and I continue to read some of his comic books, and I'm interested in reading more of them. The Marvel Fumetti book. This is another one I did not know anything about. Fumetti is comic books using photos. So what you do is you take pictures, you put the pictures together, and then you add word balloons to them. I think that's the definition of Fumetti. Kind of like the stuff I used to see in National Lampoon when I was much younger, about this era in the 1980s. I don't know if they still do that. I don't even know if National Lampoon is still printed, for that matter. But the Marvel Fumetti book, and so it was just a one-shot. But that, along with the Marvel No Prize book, is one of those things that's definitely on my list of things that I want to find. Alpha Flight number 12. I talked about this on episode 58 of Dave Talks Comics. It actually, issues 1 through 12 I talked about. If you listen to episodes 40, 53, and 58, you can hear what I have, my thought about that. But that's a very important issue of Alpha Flight. A very special issue of Alpha Flight. Power Pack number 1. I don't think I have it. I don't think I've ever read it. Incredible Hulk number 300. Obviously an anniversary number type issue. Marvel Team Up number 150. Now we're into 1985. So at this point, the annuals have obviously gone over $1. I don't know if they went to $1.25 or $1.50, but so in 1985 we still have a few more specials, a few more, nowhere near as many as we had in 84 or certainly 83 when there was 15 of them. There was Marvel Team Up number 150, Star Wars number 92, Saga of the Crystar, Crystal Warrior number 11, which was the last issue of that series. Oh, and Marvel Team Up number 150 was the last issue of that series. Spectacular Spider-Man number 100. And the 1985 Moon Knight series, number 1. I haven't read, I think I have that one actually, but I haven't read any of those others from 1985. Now, in 1986, I talked about when DC Comics, the transition for DC Comics from 75 cents to $1. I didn't, for whatever reason, I didn't talk about that. On episode 75, I talked about that for DC Comics. For whatever reason, I didn't talk about the transition for Marvel Comics from 75 cents to $1. So, the first Marvel comic to go to $1 was Power Pack number 26. And basically, over the next 3 years, all Marvel comic books transitioned from 75 cents to $1. I think they held on to some of their more popular titles at the 75-cent price. And that Power Pack was in October of 86. And then by September of 89, the last titles moved from 75 cents to $1. And those were Avengers Spotlight, Captain America, Daredevil, Fantastic Four, Incredible Hulk, Iron Man, Thor, West Coast Avengers, and Marvel Tales. And so that was the end of that was really, I guess, the beginning, the end of the 75-cent era, the beginning of the dollar era. So that's my recap of dollar comics from Marvel Comics. Sticking with the twin themes of 100 and dollar comics, I want to talk a little bit about Marvel 2-in-1 number 100, which cost $1. The cover of this shows The Thing and Ben Grimm, because Marvel 2-in-1 was, of course, a team-up book, like Marvel Team Up, except Marvel 2-in-1 was always The Thing and somebody else. Sometimes more than one person, but usually one person. In this case, it's Ben Grimm, and Ben Grimm is, of course, the alter ego. Well, I don't know if alter ego is the right word in this case, but secret identity is the name he was born with, but not the name that most of the world knows him by. This story is kind of born out of a story that took place 50 issues earlier. That being from Marvel 2-in-1 number 50, in which the Thing fought the Thing. In that story, the Thing went back in time to try and give himself an antidote. I guess antidote is the right word. To cure himself so that he would be okay in the present. I talked about that on Dave Talk on episode 24 of this podcast. That issue came out in April of 1979, and it was written and drawn by, it was written by John Byrne, it was penciled by John Byrne, but the inks were by Joe Sinnott. And in this issue, what we learn is that the time machine that he used to go back in time wasn't just a time machine. It actually transported him into another dimension, because that's what he did. He went into an alternate universe when he thought he was just going back in time. He was actually going back in time and into an alternate universe and helping out an alternate universe of himself. The antidote that he brought with him, he administered to this guy after getting into a huge fight with him, this other Ben Grimm, and he gave him the antidote, and the antidote worked. But of course, then he had to come back. That story can be found I read it in the Fantastic Four Visionaries John Byrne Volume 0. It may be reprinted other places. I think it's available on Marvel Unlimited, if you have a membership to that. So this issue, this isn't my favorite issue. I think the best thing about this issue is that, and I'm talking about issue 100 now, is that it is the speculative nature of it. You know, what would happen if, and in that sense it is kind of a what-if story. What if the Thing hadn't been the Thing? And there's all these repercussions that they get into, and really that's my favorite part of the story. You see that the Thing, because the Thing wasn't part of the Fantastic Four, Spider-Man joined the Fantastic Four and became the fourth member. But then when Galactus came to Earth, for some reason Galactus didn't have the Silver Surfer with him, so the Silver Surfer wasn't there to talk Galactus out of devouring the Earth. And while Galactus didn't devour the entire Earth, he sucked it of its resources, and so it's a husk of what it would have been. And then you see that, and the other thing that happened was that the heroes most of the heroes, actually all of the superheroes of the world ended up dying fighting Galactus. And so now that Galactus leaves, and then the Red Skull steps in, and the Red Skull takes over. And unfortunately, Captain America isn't around. I suppose he isn't around because he probably would have died fighting Galactus, but he's also not around because he was never discovered. Because, presumably there was a Captain America in this universe, this alternate universe. It's, I guess, not the 616. I don't know if they've ever gave this universe a designation, or if it has showed up in any subsequent stories. But Captain America was never found floating in a block of ice because, the events that led up to him being found was that first Ben Grimm got into a fight with Johnny Storm, the Human Torch. The Human Torch ran off. He met the Submariner, who had lost his memory. Then the Submariner runs off and finds Captain America in a block of ice. Well, because the Thing was never there to get into a fight with the Human Torch, Captain America was never found. That's a little, I don't know. It doesn't completely work for me, because wouldn't Captain America have been dead anyway if he'd been alive? Wouldn't he have died fighting Galactus? Okay, anyway. So basically, the Thing ends up teaming up with Ben Grimm to defeat the Red Skull, and it's a dystopian kind of. It's not even really supposed to be a future. It's supposed to take place in the present, I believe, the same time that the same time that he left. So I believe it's the same date that he left. So, I mean, they team up to win, and I mean, that's basically the end of the story. The story itself, like I said, is not great. What I like is the speculative nature of itself. The other thing that's worth mentioning is that this is the last issue of Marvel 2-in-1, and after this, The Thing did have a comic book after this, and that was a comic book called The Thing, which started the following month after this issue. So this was June of '83, so that started in July of '83, but there is absolutely no lead-in from this comic book to that one. And I really thought there would be. So I was kind of surprised. And there's nothing on the letters page about it. There's nothing in the story about it. I think I have the first issue of The Thing, but that's it. It ran for, 30 or 40 issues, something like that. But it's what you get for the most part in this is letters about a previous issue of Marvel 2-in-1. So, anyhow, that's it for Marvel 2-in-1 number 100. A few more notes on the subject of dollar comics. First, the way I did my search, the way I pulled the list of dollar comics from the Grand Comics database, which can be found at comics.org, is that I used their advanced search feature, and I searched for issues. I set the publisher to either DC or Marvel. I did a separate search for each. I ordered the search results first by date and then by series name. And then in the price field, I put 1.00 space USD. This is not a number field. It's a text field. And if you just put in 1, you're going to get things like 10-cent comics as well. And if you don't put in the USD, you're also going to get comics that were priced at 1.00 in other denominations like British pounds or Canadian dollars. The search turned up 1,386 DC comics, and the Marvel search turned up 2,561 comics. Interesting, both seem to kind of run out around 1992. The last issues were in 1990. There may have been a couple issues later than that, but that's really the break point for both. Okay, there's a few things I'd like to expand on or correct. First off, and all of these actually are on Marvel Comics side of the house. Captain America Annual Number 6, I talked about that on episode 4 of Dave Talks Comics. The Dazzler, What If Dazzler had become the Herald of Galactus? I don't think I actually read that issue of What If, but I did read the issues of Dazzler. I used to have the issues of Dazzler that story was based on, and that was issues 10 and 11 of Dazzler. I'm pretty sure that I remember collecting Dazzler for a very short time, less than 6 months. I think it was because of her ties to X-Men, and possibly because it featured Galactus. But there's a couple issues in which Galactus and Terrax the Tamer appear. I believe those are issues 10 and 11, and I may have collected from about 9. I'm sure I had issue 9, which involves Project Pegasus, and I may have collected as far as issue 13, but I think I'd pretty much dropped it by then. And so that's, I think, what I was thinking of when I was talking about that What If issue that involved Dazzler and Galactus. And that's why I couldn't remember reading the What If involving Iron Man being trapped in King Arthur's time. Belasco, who appeared in the issue 29 of Khazar the Savage, which was the wedding of Khazar and Shanna the She-Devil, and is figured prominently on the cover. He first appeared in Uncanny X-Men number 160, which is also the issue where Illyana gets kidnapped by Belasco and winds up spending years in I can't remember the name of, if it was Limbo or if there was another name for the world or the dimension where Belasco lived. But Belasco was originally a Khazar character. I believe he appeared originally in like issue 12 or 11 of Khazar, of that same series of Khazar, because there's been more than one series of Khazar. Dracula. Okay, Dracula first appeared in the X-Men in Uncanny X-Men number 159, and soon thereafter he appeared in Uncanny X-Men Annual number 6. So both of those are found in the Essential Uncanny X-Men volume that I have, volume 3. And then finally, The Thing. The Thing's comic book, his first solo comic book, not counting Marvel 2-in-1, I guess, because it's not really a solo series since he teams up with somebody every issue. But his solo comic book, which began in July of 1983, ran for 36 issues and ended in June of 1986. Oh, and the other thing about when it comes to Marvel 2-in-1 number 100, when I looked it up, when I was doing a little bit of research online just now, it looks like that story takes place on Earth 7940. Of course, the regular Marvel Universe is Earth 616, or 616, or 616. And I found an interesting web page which kind of did a little bit of speculation about Earth 7940, and I will try to provide a link to that, but the website is Marvun App, Marvunapp.com. But if you do a search for Earth 7940 or Marvel Earth 7940, it will turn it up. But on this page, the person who, and I'm not sure who it is, who designed this, let's see if I can see. I'm looking at the page right now. I don't see a name, but yes, I don't see a name, but the person who designed this page talks a little bit about this story, the story from Marvel 2-in-1. Well, he talks about both stories, the Marvel 2-in-1 number 50 and Marvel 2-in-1 number 100. And then he also talks about how it might tie into other stories. And it's kind of interesting. I haven't read it in depth, but it looks kind of interesting. That's it for episode 100 of Dave Talks Comics. Next time, I will be talking about the Legion of Superheroes, The Great Darkness Saga, Part 3. Dave Talks Comics can be found on the internet at davetalkscomics.com and facebook.com/DaveTalksComics. On Twitter, @DaveTalksComics. Email can be sent to davetalkscomics@gmail.com. I'm Dave. Thank you for listening.